Greetings, everyone. I hope you all are doing well on this Saturday, whether it's your morning, afternoon, or evening. My name is Alan, and welcome to the 5th installment of the Senior Lama Teaching Series. We took a short break these last few months because so many precious teachings were happening and already bringing us together as a collective Sangha, but it's so nice to be back together again. In the meantime, you may have noticed that we've moved the series from the monthly cycle of Dakini days to one Saturday each month. Our intention is to make participation more practical for all of our busy lives. And today, of course, we're extremely pleased that Tulku Migmar Sering will be giving a teaching entitled Preparing to Die, Learning to Live. On a housekeeping note, as usual, the chat feature is only available for our Zoom host, in this case, George. So if there are any problems, you can let George know. Aside from English, today's teaching is being translated into Chinese, Japanese, Portuguese, Indonesian, Russian, Spanish, Thai, and Vietnamese. So let's take a moment now, and if there are any problems, let George know, and I'll wait until everything is clear. If your main language is English or Tibetan, you don't need to do anything. And just an update, I understand Indonesian is actually not available today. Okay, looks like everything is fine. So I'm delighted to introduce Tulku Migmar Sering to you today. I'm sure you recall that last November, Tukula gave an inspiring teaching on the 8 worldly dharmas and the 8 worldly concerns. Most of us are very familiar with Tukula, so I won't say too much, but I must point out that, as we know, Tukula is an outstanding practitioner and master of the Choling Tursar lineage, who serves as senior lama for Pachok Rinpoche and is also the resident lama in the Singapore Center. Tukula's teachings are always clear and precise, so we're so fortunate that he's giving us this teaching on such an important topic today, the topic of death and dying. And I understand that Tukula will begin with the Noble Sutra on teaching the 11 perceptions, then give a brief teaching before addressing some of the questions that we submitted at registration. We're also fortunate to have back Orion Lavallee, very highly skilled translator, and she will be translating Tukula's teachings into English. So I now turn it over to Tulku Migmar and Orion. Tukula, please turn the wheel of Dharma.
Tulkula. Lo Tulkula. Sengu duhe. Att kran mute chidu. Sound window. Datong sun koge window. Da unmute chigore. Chunky lokle la Yunchuk. Yunchuk tang okla mute tang on mute. sun kogimida. Oh, tatiksan.
어, 오케이. 근데 가르스나 dengi host ki nanzola lastri. ता mo dina tatring chushuge se kore yana participate se kore samala ngangi ngone ani tashi dele ta 참지 shugi istambo.
So first of all, I would like to welcome and greet all of the participants, all those here to listen to the Dharma today. Tashi dele to everyone.
大家
네.
首先要
되니 다 정말 지 유링보 기줄라 니 다 망치와지 자 두개 다 통해 다 토해 락송 드니 가부충스
And it's very nice to get to see and hear so many of you after such a long time today.
네 나랑게 레와레 아주 사마게 레와레 팅나랑주 두개다 통해다 토해기 지 다와지 니레 야나 진짜 니레 근데 진이 대요레 전에 제가 나랑서 같은 나랑이나레 케랑조이나레 또 눈자치기 죽라 제용 야나 눈자니기 제라 제용 야나 다와치기 죽라 제용 스미테 가로 지게 유릉보지 제기레 저는 마음바기 다지 드인더스니 가로 대여레스 드링 나랑서 창마 창마 시나 드링 대여바 이 창마지 대보 당보 이지 기부 기능을 통해라서 대안들이 가부중스.
So it is mine as well as I think most of our hope that we might all meet again. We might be hoping to meet each other again, see each other, hear each other next week or in 2 weeks or next month. And so it's very nice this time having elapsed to get to see all of you, everyone who's here, see that you are well, see that you seem to be doing well.
자 드링기 조디 저자 조디더니 가서 보래 preparing to die 시도 다 지금 알아서 배반이 가서 지금 다디 디 시마시고라 니 자직세고래 대 가리 김제 요바야네 김제 매바 간디지고니 뭐니 되니 나라서 지금 미세 다지 개념 시우 발도 되니 간디지니 초와 정보에다 간디지니 지 대두래 다디 지금 최치고래 뭐고래 근데 가리지고니 대고야지 근데 저저
And the topic of today's discussion is preparing to die, and also how to live in the meantime, how from the moment of birth to the moment of death, how can we make life meaningful, or what makes life meaningful, what makes it meaningless, what makes up happiness, what makes up unhappiness, how can we practice the Dharma or not? Basically, how should we live before the time of death? So these are the main topics for today's teaching.
The so the ring there shugin the mangchewaji ni chue daji kansagore ji tezang gomsum la ji 장사바 yana tezang gomsum 망보 지사기 peche injure tingiru mangchewade ring the kansagore 다 뒤지다 조선 범순 비제비제 나는 로마 야는 로주 근데 최슈 차게 야는 로주 차게 내리 샤다 인주레 팅기도 스나란 거네.
And from seeing you all here, I think most of the people assembled today are all people who already engage in the study, contemplation, and meditation of the Dharma. Seeing all of you, I'm thinking most of you have probably been receiving Dharma teaching for the past 10 years or so, and studying, contemplating, meditating, applying these teachings. Tulku Migmar video Chesam. I think we have a bandwidth problem. Oh. Seems like Tulku has been momentarily disconnected and he is back. Tulku Migmar suntan gagdu.
거기에 공다
나 거기에.
나서 공다디 케 송차인데.
네. 시차.
알아. 나저디 네데 하고 제가미 또 달고 차이 대한 미다바지랑 신도 다지 교와다지도.
So the internet is so good at the moment.
되네. 제가 뭐 저선 공선 제 인세다. 랩스야.
랩송.
그래서 되네. 딱 나랑도 참아. 지 마뇽지 개발마도 때 참아 더봐 중요래 마뇽지마도 삼바양 마뇽지마도 곰바양 뒤에 마뇽지마도 나랑도 참아 다지 취지게 지토상 공송 남바상 얘기 네디 공기권에래 야나 게림 조그림 기권에래 작전에 조전에 배제 말한 참아 되지 몸되게 그랬어 남이 지심 말했어 참아.
So as I was saying, everyone here, it seems, has already been not only receiving but practicing the Dharma for many years, there may be differences in terms of how long each of us have individually been studying, contemplating, and applying, meditating on the Dharma. So some of us may have done so for longer than others, but everyone assembled here seems to be students, long-term students, who have all studied, contemplated, and meditated on the Buddha's teachings, the Buddha Dharma, practicing perhaps generation or completion stage, or Mahamudra, or the great perfection, and the like.
다 냠림 마치게 양나 토섬 곰숨 라 지게 니 마칭에 지기나 양다 단다 데라 피제 가시 사와야 요시기레 아니 지 땅아랑주 상마 드니 지 밀르르부치 더 밀르르부치 지 톱 되는 밀르르부치 지가 달와 제다 주가주 덴베 밀르르부치 지 톱. 니 밀르르부치 톱바 데 니 나랑서 다지 간서 거래 고급 성보직다. 니 나랑서 지 딜라 아분보야래 니 톱 까바직라야 톱 밀르르부치 지 톱. 니 쉐야 니 쉐지라. 니 다 데 밀르르부치 약보지 톱에 다지 쉐 정보시나 데 쉐지게 옛날에 다 쉐 타상 검술은 다지 다시니 고속인지 옛날에 데 밀르르부치 데지 톱 간서 거래 데 톱까와디 단가 톱 대발라 니 나랑조다 지 김센다 뎀바지 밀르르부치 디 베저마다나 데니 지 간서 거래 코 미닥바 카딜레 메레 텐데요 마레스
But even if there may be a few here who are new to the Dharma, who are not seasoned practitioners and have not engaged in study, contemplation, and meditation, there may be some of you here who are quite new to the Buddha Dharma. Still, all of us, without exception, have achieved the precious human body. Everyone here has obtained the precious human body with the 10 riches and the 8 leisures. And this is an incredible opportunity. Or in other words, we can say we are very fortunate to not only have this precious human body, but also within this body to have the opportunity to receive the Dharma. And so then, especially as practitioners who engage in study, contemplation, and meditation of the Dharma, now that we have obtained this precious human body, we should think of whether or not we are putting this precious human body to good use, whether we are giving meaning to this precious human life that we have attained. Because really, if we don't put it to good use, if we don't put this precious human body to meaningful purpose, we should remember that everything is impermanent and the time of death is uncertain.
데네 다 소디 다다지 나랑조 death dies 디 하서 거래 근데 조자지 도아틱 다 망지 나랑조 최지 페페링의 지기레스 망치와스 페페링 망치와 지기르다 peppering and tadik doa marasta tadik chi chigires chu shiging gi chu chidang gi da chi tadik chu chigir da maraso gerim gom da gom zorim gom jab tene kashi social gi lega tene kashi gi da chu chiging na tene chi sam nindu 다 감정 마주 다 알아서 매지와도 피지 요 말레스 같이 지기레스 다양 추 미싱인지나 다 지댕기 미다 민나 가야 미싱인지나 고소양 다리 지기레스 다 다리 지기레 다 게네 손데 다리 지지를 롭종지 부구된 롭종당 되니 롭종 야차네 되니 지금 배샤 사회다 전 총제다 미셀라 강반유에다 강바에 다지 망보지 지혜당 창작야배당 대양 부구차 되니 부구차가 이제 양록다 땅에다 다지 다리 지지기 레스 다리 미지어 말레스 다니 이제 최초네 다리 지기를 좀 마징이네 다리 지기 레스
So this is the topic, right, of today's teaching. This main topic is death and how to prepare for dying. But actually, we're all already preparing for death. We are, especially all of us who practice the Dharma, that in itself is preparation for the time of death. Whether we practice the generation stage or the completion stage, spend time in meditation, are engaged in charitable or social activities, or practice approach and accomplishment in retreat. Basically, it's not that we're just doing these things at random. All of these are preparations for death. But even those who do not know anything about the Dharma, even people who live their worldly lives without knowing the Dharma, are actually also preparing. They prepare all their lives by at first studying and then getting jobs and making money and building a big house or getting a house, getting married, having kids, sending those kids to school, et cetera, et cetera. All of this in the end is actually preparation. So whether from a Dharma perspective, whether people are engaged in Dharma activities or just in worldly activities, really we are all continuously preparing for the moment of death.
망치와지 나랑서 다치 지게 나래 미징에 나래 다 망치와지 나랑서 세 되게 체도 지고 지게 주래 팅도 세 되게 체도 다 제네 마시 버도 다 같이 부지 중아 같이 부 중에라 되니 강복 고야 당 되니 로종 고야 당 민고야 당 아니 된도 고야지 양 최지gen지 이나야 되니 체 딜라야 가서 그래 지게 셈바기부면에 셈바기부 용해다 되니 지 다 같이 비자 망타네 셈바기부 매지야 최지지 상마유 내가 비자시라 매나야 종가데 마직나야 다디 미세디 망볼 레카시지 칼레 쇼도 다초면도 양 최지지고 살세야 최지지 되딜라 다자 지게 니가게 페제 망서와티 체 디그랑 제 지디게 이제 챙기도 스팅 아랑이다 박수신이 라기 예스.
But yet really in all those preparations, I think most of us, most every one of us, whether we practice the Dharma or not, really everything we do is mostly focused on this very life, on getting what we want and being happy in this life, whether it's through getting an education, making a name for ourselves, whatever it is, it's very much focused on making this life better. It's the same for Dharma practitioners. Most Dharma practitioners practice in order to go from unhappiness in this life to happiness in this life. And so, sometimes people who are very rich and successful realize that even their wealth doesn't bring them happiness, and so they decide to leave it all behind in order to practice the Dharma so that they may be happy. Or those who are not doing well in business and do, not have much money, find that situation difficult and therefore decide that they want to leave that behind and just want to leave the business behind and practice the Dharma similarly in order to be happier, right? So in all cases, basically, whether we practice the Dharma or not, all of us, or most of us, I'd like to say, are focused on making this current life, better.
Then that's all the around that situation again, a rich meeting in the missing in that said the Chiga the cancer for a Ming down. The name you banjo down the negative bulletina. That's all the careers and around the Dichin Shencha Chini Degowe Jumzendi, the name Midaba Chiwa the Aboji Martin became rating those.
And so for all of us, whether we practice the Dharma or not, though, if we are only focused on this life, if we are only focused on whatever it is in this life, whether it's making a name for ourselves or getting rich, acquiring wealth, and so on, I think that is a mark of attachment and of not recollecting impermanence and death.
Say Dick is Tambotian and around that Kewaji Lane Sabijela, the Deburing around Miluji top check. That the Milu top day, ko Midaba Imbadi, ko that Tresa Yomare, that the Lama in a re, Sanji Mela in a re, the Mitsaba Megona re, which around Gupanjo has the Chimboji in a re, the Midabaji Leona Kota, left China, they could Tresa Yomare, Kanchisa Yomar, Gupanjo Ping Mare, Lama and Ping Mare, Sanji Mela and Ping Mare, then Kanchigi and Ping Mares.
But to be honest, this life that we have obtained at the moment of birth, this precious human body, which is a result, right, that has come to fruition at the moment that we take on this life, it's impermanent, and there's no escaping this impermanence. Nothing will help you at the end of life. When the time of death comes, the guru cannot help you, medicine Buddha cannot help you, your wealth will not be able to help you. Nothing, there is no escape. Nothing can deliver you from death when the time of death comes.
The Indozani, the Kandina Chigores, Nazo Sangma, Kini Sundi, that Machiwachi Pichi Yomar.
So that's how it is. Once we have been born, there is no escape from death. Death always follows birth.
The Indozani Tanda Bardoya, Chige the Machingi Nila, Samlo Tana Chige Mangres, Inaya Machingi Denzo Yang, Kale Chair and Res.
So if we think about it, really, at this moment, many more people have passed away than people who are still alive. And even those people who are alive at this moment will, one after the other, pass away.
The Indo Marazo, the Chini Jigdela some Midapa said, and now just Simjela some Midapa said, that you PG leggings, your Martini, I give Tambalesta, 상계래 상계 망부지 표리 기부 담보 망부지 표현 우리 된소야 되니 즉 단다 레요 말레스 정말
라.
에 기부 담바다 고마 상계 망부지 표 기부 담보 망부지 표를 단다 즉 세마도 다지 레요 말레스.
And so this is the nature of all things, the outer world, as well as its inhabitants, beings. Everything is impermanent. Even all of the Buddhas of the past, the sublime beings of the past, are only still present in name. Once they, all of them have at some point passed away and are no longer present among us.
인도 데니지 나랑도 다디 미다바 임바디다 다 참아 하고 그래 게니 손데 치에데 야지게 임바 나라서 하고 그래 다이나 트락쇼지 땅 나랑솔라 지게 직바 체쇼지 가래스나 다 남치 가리 가두치 마치 디 나라서 하고 그래 말레스.
So everyone knows this, really. Everyone knows about impermanence. Everyone knows that death always follows birth. But our greatest fear comes from the fact that we don't know when death or how death will come and what will happen at the time of death.
아지 나랑서 남치 참에서야디 대체 나랑서 참참 강바잡지 강바게 마딥니시 도게 요래 양 칼라 사지니 드니 칼라 약보사니 가서 초기래 양을 체르고 되기래서야 칼라 망보지 약보지 사사더니 blood pressure high 차 cholesterol 차 드니 sugar 차 양디 나서 심지 양 시게 요래 다에 칼라 사지 초기래 돼 양디게 나서 심지 지게 요래 드니 강바 즉부지강 통보질 대고 돼야 깊지시니 돼 근데 강바니 마야 총 괜지니 지게 뭐라 답니 지게 요래 다 냐진다 데니 시게 요래 다 찍디 시바 네바 요 말스 드로이 시게 요레스.
And so that's how it is. The time of death is uncertain. Death can come at any time and in any manner. Some people might have built a very nice house for themselves, a beautiful big house for themselves, and die as the house crumbles upon them. Or some people might enjoy a lot of good foods, rich foods during their lifetimes and develop diabetes or heart disease or high blood pressure and die basically because of the food they ate. Some people die in car accidents. Some people die in their beds. There is no telling how or when one will die.
They do that. 미세 지금 가래 나랑서 다 중종이 다 지금 최 미징해 주나 다 럽종치 되니 인데 지용도 자니 다디 가도 치마치 가서 하고 거요 말에 이나야 다 나랑서 가도 이나야 지금 상이 나니 다와지 로직 로가시기 죽라 된 페이지 로 자주 급주스가 되기래 되니 되니 가서 tradition이 되게 그랬어.
And so that's how this life is. Its span is completely unpredictable. And yet from the moment we are young, from the moment we are children, study, and go on through our lives, not knowing, there's no knowing when death will come. And yet we always prepare as if we were to live on not only tomorrow and the day after, but even for 80, 90 years. We all prepare for a long life.
우디인도 다디 조디 직대 데르 링도 미니바 되니 나라서 치와 제수 된 거에디 게첨버레스.
And so for that reason, it's extremely important for us all to remember death, to recollect the uncertainty of the time of death and the uncertainty of our lifespans.
다디 인도 또 조디 창마 ngaranzo ha gogi yore ta ina ya ngaranzo ge mize de nangla shiwe kapsu zo ta tamala ta rab ina da changoshen na rab di chungna da ta ji kanso gore 이게 시도자니 가우 또치니 조토겐지 라비나 딩이나야 디 시도자니 데가
건다
가서
라피나
라비나 가가 쪼쪼강라 치에 치톱겐 딩이나야 딜라야니 가서 고래 나랑도 치에라 데니 체레 미조 또 어치나 가요 말했어야 되는데 근데 타마 이나야 치도 교바 매와지 수고해야 게좀 버레스.
And so we all know this. We all know of death and impermanence. But as we prepare for death within this life, then really the goal, let's say, best is to be able to pass away happy and joyful, to welcome death with joy. Next best is to be indifferent to death. And at the very least, though, we should aim not to have any regrets at the time of death.
디 제벌라 소디 치위세 최마도 강기장 빙 말레스 디 더지기 셈라레 디다 최마도 요 말레스.
And in order to be able to have this type of mindset at the time of death, these different mindsets, really, there's only one thing that can help us to cultivate this type of mindset, and that is Dharma.
이마도 된 노르기니 페기 마레스 데니 니 마랑조 빙자 파마 세고레 덴즈기니 팽기 마레스 데니 나라 랑라 유비 류디양 팽기 마레스.
Other than the Dharma, our wealth will not help us at the time of death. Our relatives, parents, and so on will not help us. Our close ones cannot help us at the time of death. And our body will be of no use to us at the time of death.
그래서 노르 가제여나요 가제 주부여나요 디코 치 가독들라 데니 참아요니 도고레스 데니 빙자양다 기랑주 가제여나요 지금 참참 빙자이 여바데 참참다 미망보여 코르망보여나 깔레카르도롱 짐바 착바 차소나 깔레여라 된저게야 기랑 겹두고 말에 기랑라야 시급수 코레치와 미다바데 lep소나 건조야 핑기 말레스 데니 랑을라 여비 류디야 데니 이마지 가제 즉부 연나레 가제 제보 연나레 가제 톱 첨부 연나레 가제 슉 첨부 연나레 치와 미다바레 겹수 거데 벤도 말레스.
No matter how wealthy you are, no matter how much money you have, you will have to leave all of it behind at the time of death. No matter how many relatives you have, even if you have a very extended family, that can actually make things more difficult, having so many more people to be attached to. So that can actually create more difficulties at the time of death, but in any case, you'll have to leave them all behind. And no matter how nice and beautiful a body you have, no matter how strong or attractive it is, it will have to be left behind at the time of death.
디조디 마랑조 최바 단지 나에게 최바당 최바 마임바 니 샤소아 더 최바 더오지라 삼나 데니 치와 템바디 마kum바이나 니미 가서 그래 나랑라 예바 균 가요레스나.
And so the main thing here, earlier I spoke of the difference between Dharma practitioners and non-practitioners. And now, taking the case of a Dharma practitioner, if as a Dharma practitioner one does not remind oneself of death, if one does not cultivate the recollection of death, then what is the fault in that? What is the disadvantage of not recollecting death?
니 최 미팅비기 네바요 그래서 예미 최 미팅스나 다 지가 다지 최 쉬쉬를 도선 검수 지지래다 최 양다바 꿀롱들 양다바 용 말했어 최 이시라 댕게 말해 다 테스 지지그래 양 남인강도 레오나 지최 댕 말했다 거 파파파파파파 양진이 파파파 지대진이 샤샤 그래서 딩 네바 용 그래서
Well, the negative consequence of not recollecting death as a Dharma practitioner is that no matter how much teachings we receive, no matter how much we study, contemplate, and meditate, actually, we won't truly be mindful of the Dharma. We won't truly keep the Dharma in mind. We might study, we might contemplate, we might meditate, but because we don't have the right motivation, because we haven't given rise to the right motivation, no matter how much Dharma we practice, we'll be swept away by any distraction that comes up, always just being swayed by this and that. And so that is the fault of not recollecting death and impermanence. It is that we actually do not correctly recollect the Dharma itself.
다 이나야 지와 미다바디 약보지 셈라 마샤 셈라 마테나 드니야 최 텐자 미드비 니미르스 최 텐 팅게르다 이나야 나랑도 두게 말이야 최 텐 팅게르다야 두게 말이 냐루 지와 미다바디 약보지 셈라 마기나 드니야 파 산이 지기 나니 지기스 망보여라 가죠 다 달로 나 공이 또 쓰여 드니 로니 숨질랑아 로숨 속숨지 대가 두기 양나가 달로 빈자냠불라 되긴 로지만 내가 로슨 쪽선 제 내가 들으면서는 라고 망보여라 제인자한테 최 누구 말했단다 들어가서 세와 미다바디 가들에 말에 팅라서 뭐니 기셈 뭐니 셈 기톨라딜 탑쳐 보지요 말아
Or alternately, if we as practitioners, if we do not recollect, if we do not remind ourselves of death and impermanence, then even if we may be thinking of the Dharma, even if we may be mindful of the Dharma, we will not accomplish the Dharma, we will not reach the results of our practice. And that's another negative consequence of not recollecting death and impermanence. Many of us are like that. Many of us procrastinate, saying, oh, I'll do it tomorrow or the day after. Oh, this year, I need to make some money, and then after that, I'll go into 3-year retreat. Or this year, I need to spend some time with my family, and after that, I'll go into 3-year retreat, right? So always pushing Dharma practice or procrastinating in our Dharma practice. And that is a consequence of not recollecting death and impermanence. If we do not recollect death and impermanence, then though we may think of the Dharma, really we have not reached decisiveness with regards to the Dharma practice.
숨바디 딩니바레 숨바디 되니 지게 지와 메다바데 약보지 마텐소나 되니 최 두장 되니 약보지 두고 말했어 지 뿌이다보지 두고 말해 지그래 나랑서 망지 지그래 쇼게 간된 지그래 공다 간된 지그래 되니 짐바 땅그래 주림 공부를 소바 공부를 준비 잠다 망보지 파르진 두글라 소베 된최 망보지 지지게를 되니 징아랑서 등상 charity kita social ke lega ena chigir ta chigir the dub that te khaso gore dub ina yang te namda yakbo pi ta boji dub mares chig chala chule daw ji dub res tia khas midak ba gyule yakbo majibi chiwa midak ba dise gyule yakbo je majibi ge teni nyemi gres.
The third, so those were the two first downfalls or negative consequences of not recollecting death and impermanence. The third negative consequence, possible negative consequence, is even though perhaps we are mindful of the Dharma, perhaps we are practicing the Dharma, but it won't be authentic, it won't be full quality, right? It won't be genuine Dharma. So, most of us, we are practicing the Dharma. We do recitation in the morning and the evening. We practice generosity and patience, the 6 transcendent perfections. We perhaps engage in charitable activities. So most of us might be practicing the Dharma, but if we do not truly keep in mind death and impermanence, then our Dharma practice will not be truly genuine. It will not be truly authentic. So that is the third fault incurred from not recollecting death and impermanence.
Ni shiva de ta chua midaba yagoji matena tini kasi ngaranzo che drupa inai tini dila chi mutuni nenden se gore yana mutuni chi takbaji mutu am yana nenden dang dalwi pa ta tring chi yang nimani sum ji rest chu ngalega ji chi pesha so yang tos chi nya ne sightseeing ji do te nga yang abda ji chala yang nga chi gi sin tini dede chi ge yang naming se gore nyimik cha do gores meta pa ya poji ma tin bi gi kyon le tini dede chi cha do gores.
The fourth negative consequence of not recollecting death and impermanence is even if we may be practicing the Dharma correctly, but we won't be able to do so continuously. We won't be able to do so diligently. We won't be kind of applying ourselves continuously. We won't be practicing every day. Every day, always. So, many of us are like this. Today we practice, and then for 2 or 3 days we take a rest. Maybe we have some work to do, make some money, go sightseeing, and then, practice again this next week, like this. This is another negative consequence. This is another downfall arising from not recollecting death and impermanence.
Teni ta ngaba teni di khasa gore chigar joshindo chigobe nyami mures chi kapsu da shi kapsu teni joba gangla shi goe.
And the fifth downfall or negative consequence of not recollecting death and impermanence is that at the time of death, we will die with regret.
Tene tadi anda di marangzo ta mangcho tanda dela dinangla yujure kashi ji hospice do chi ja ina marangzo gensu kangji tene tama shisa shiring ro la ta doctor ki tha chu ji da chira nima kashi ma de mindu ta yana dawa chik ma de mindu segen da lo trukju dungju jaju gupju yugen tene kebu gemu denzola tene hospice gi do la chiki inji ko dendre gi nangla teni top 5 regrets says of the dying says ngedi debji na thongs korangzo ge ta tamashi rindu teni top 5 wishes teni jidu nge thongsons.
And so this might be like this for many of us. We know that many people end their lives in hospice, right? So elderly people when they're 60, 70, 80, 90 might spend their remaining days in a hospice. And, at some point the doctor tells you, oh, you only have maybe a few days left or 1 month left or something. And then at that point regrets come, and I saw this in a book I read about this. There was a mention of the top 5 regrets of people who are about to die and who know they are about to die.
I think injil teacher injil logi na tini thangbo di first di diri do I wish I would have the courage to live a life true to myself, not like others. Koranzo thangbo ta wish gore mashingula tindi je do tigi do ala.
Yeah, so I'll read them to you because this isn't an English book. So the top 5 regrets or wishes of people in a hospice who are awaiting their death. So that was the first one, right? I wish I had the courage to live my life as I chose to. Next.
Second, I wish I didn't work so hard. This they regret. And then number 3, I wish I would have the courage to express my feelings. That was number 3, they wish. Number 4, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. And the number 5, I wish that I had let myself be happier. That then so Quran zoge dire thamagi da shirindu gyoba gyoba regrets. Those are the most regrets. That di mangchiwa di ngara zo mi shinge da jidang gi ngara zo mi phalba den zoge da Quran zoge regret res.
So these were their dying regrets. And so those were the top regrets of people at the time of death. And these are really the regrets that most ordinary people have at the time of death.
The Indo da Quran zo regret never da denzu changma di tanda ngarang zo sumbo kapsu. Tini lega ina work hard chiye dang. Tini chi gara sigore chokpo ina chokpo denzu lain gyoba me ngani tini dusu triye dang. Nangmi la dusu triye dang. Papa ama lain dusu triye dang. Lega yang lelo machi wachi lega ji china ya lega ya bu puta kochi. Tini rang la piye da shen la piye lega chiye dang. Ani 지가 ini rangi ta kibu chorwa dewa yakoji chora ina tini mize kamboji lega le musu tini rangi buji ane bache kibu sangma tini chil namyeng la tangmi tini an shi kapsu dang kibu chungwa tani gyoba chungya daw tanda daw tini ya me bache tini rangi buji kawa dena kanso gore 내가 그랬더니 지금 기부 처리 기부 되는 랑라 유바 데 랑게 모시에다 랑게 하고에다 토레든서 게침부 reduce.
So this being the case then, to avoid having such regrets at the time of death, we must now is the time to work against having such regrets. So what do we do now to avoid having regrets at the time of death? Well, regarding work, applying ourselves earnestly to work that benefits ourselves and others, and doing our best at work, but not spending our entire time at work. Instead, giving time to our friends, our families, spending time with our parents, and so on. And generally, in every moment, in all circumstances, cultivating a feeling of happiness, cultivating just a general feeling of happiness wherever we are at all times, and not just spending our entire lives focused just on hard work, making money, and then kind of just the rest of the time being distracted by this or that, and never genuinely feeling happiness. Instead, we need to be mindful in the present moment of cultivating a feeling of happiness, whatever happens, recognizing this feeling of happiness knowing what it is, cultivating it, that is extremely important.
Ini ta ngarang zo mang chiwa jigi da jigdin che mishige inare. Ini mangboji tanda gyoba denzo mangboji chi kabza dine gyoba mangboji. Tadi che mena ya tse chima ki samloji madangba ina ya. Tse dila dine denzo gyoba ji meba ji suyo goya di gechimboji redus.
So even if we are not Dharma practitioners, even if we don't know the Dharma, it's, and so as non-Dharma practitioners, then we might not be thinking of the next life, only thinking of this life, but still it's extremely important for the sake of this life to make sure that we don't have these types of regrets at the time of death, right? So even not from a Dharma perspective, but just a general worldly perspective, it's important to be aware and avoid having such regrets at the time of death.
Ini jarang zo da ji choga jeme inare, chokba jabgi inare, buku pama inare, jigi jele zewa meje de rangden jibu samlo tangdegi inare. Tene kashi ji da yang mize gangzam lega dangui jibu la samlo tangdi. Tene rangi mize chokla je ji dewa ji chorwa jiya meba changma ngui le pa tangje tene. Tene yang tene mize maungpa la gyoba meba jini. Tene changma midakpa re kadu cha maja kadu shi ma shi sanyi su nge droma ro. Tene ngarang zo changma de zom de do mi kya ni kya jidu. Tene sanyi kaan cha maja su hagu kuru su gangi hagu mare. Tene tering chokpa jab, yakta ji chokpa jab, ta chokpa di takpa re tene yurumbo ji la semla shedang. Tene ji nyar dena ji sanyi kaan hagu, ji kaan cha maja mari se gire. Sigire kaji nishi sigire di indusani denzo lai ji takpa tempo den medu te tanda khanre yoba dagarang la choga jemi choga jana ya o ta midak bare te nga sanga jambu jigin isini nga ta dring chang la zewa dring ji machina sani nga de ma de tende yo mare nga dring lung langi me sende ta tende ji na samlo tang choga jeme na re chambu jing de tang teni pama puin na re chambu jing de goe tang ani ji sani ka cha ma je ende medu takpa tembo medu anda yang chorwa jibuda jigi jila ande dewa jig chore.
And for that, then basically, whether we are married or have children or whatever relationships we have in our lives, it's important to think of cultivating harmony in those relationships and not just being selfish, right? Not just thinking only of ourselves, but thinking of the people in our lives. And, likewise, not just focusing on work and making money and kind of wasting our entire lives, our entire time on things that actually don't bring us happiness, right? Being unhappy as we work hard, make a lot of money, all for the sake of something that we will lose in the end because death will come and we do not know when. So, that's the way it is. We need to remember death can come at any time. Right now here, we're like 300 something people all together here, right? 370 people. So we're all alive at this moment here together, but tomorrow, who knows? Who knows who will still be alive among us tomorrow or the day after? This is the way of death and impermanence. We never know how long things will last. So remembering this means that if you are fighting with your spouse or your friends or your family, and then you stay angry and you hold on to that grudge, you don't know whether you will see tomorrow. So you don't know whether there will be an opportunity to make up, right? So, whether it's within a couple, within marriage, or with your children, or whatever it is, if you remember that today might be the last opportunity to show love to those you love, then you won't want to fight with them, right? You'll take this opportunity today to show them love, and not engage in unnecessary conflict. You won't want to get angry at your loved ones, because this might be your last chance of showing them love. And if we always remember this, if we always remember that things can end at any moment, then we'll always foster harmonious, loving, caring relationships with our spouse, with our children, with everyone in our lives, really. And this will make us happy. It will make others happy, so that we are kind of fostering this joyful, harmonious attitude within our lives, and that also comes from remembering death and impermanence. Seems like we lost Tulku again. Tulku.
This one
Oh,
again
that is
disconnect. Hello.
거기도.
Let's go on the net song.
La sala.
Oh yeah, tadi midaba dia ko ju kom sona da demba ani ji rangi lega inare khari inare dilaji chokshe ba ji gres ni rang gau ni inare khari inare dilani zewa inare khari lega ji china pi da po zewa inaya ji zewa norba maimba ji zewa ngone khorangi zewa chi ba ni ji gres ni tamashi wa kapsu dangi gyoba den zo mewa 교바 망보지도 nga 된지 매와지 차기레스 디디 차에디다 조딩 알아서 미다바지 교보지나 된저 원에 지 교바 매와지 차기레스.
So this comes from recollecting death and impermanence. All of these qualities, from recollecting death and impermanence, then we will know to be content with our work, be content with our relationships, do the best we can in our work, do the best we can to show love in the right way, to have love, show love in a way that is healthy and correct, and in all these ways, through recollecting death and impermanence, and the way that influences the way we live, then that ensures that we will not have regret at the time of death. Those 5 regrets that I spoke of earlier, we won't have these types of regret if we always keep this in mind. So this all comes from recollecting death and impermanence.
디도 나랑서 안다 상계게 송을 두시 탐지기 나니 촉도 줄바티 미닥베 두시 이스 두시게 나니 촉도 줄바.
So this being the case, the Buddha himself said, among all the types of perceptions that one can have, or thoughts that one can have, the supreme among them is the recollection of impermanence.
지금 미싱이지 나를 시긴지 시긴지 나야 되니 어디 촉 줄바디 두시 탐지 난 촉도 줄바디 다니 미다 두시 다랑 차되게 그랬어.
And this is true even for ordinary worldly people who are not Dharma practitioners, but even for Dharma practitioners, still the most supreme among all thoughts, or most supreme among all perceptions, is the recollection of impermanence and death.
chiwa midaba jian di nangba sangi gi chue gi jugo chagir chu nangba sangi gi chue gi juge gi go tanda lamga ikyalang zo khamba nanglo na chilo lo na nangba sangi gi chue le ya jugo na ta juge di zo di tini ngarang zo the midaba de res khasi di midaba di meba ina tini chue le ya juk tugu mare chue ya buji cha tugu mares choba ya buji cha tugu mares.
That being the case, then, it is said that recollecting death and impermanence is, in fact, the entryway into the Buddha Dharma. So if you are outside on the road and you want to enter into the house of the Buddha's teachings, then the doorway that you need to go through is the doorway of the recollection of death and impermanence. Recollecting death and impermanence is indispensable to entering into the Dharma, to practicing the Dharma correctly, to becoming a good Dharma practitioner. Without recollecting death and impermanence, you cannot truly engage with the Dharma. And also we say that the recollection of death and impermanence is kind of the seed investment into the Dharma. If you want to do business, you need like a seed money, right? So that seed money is the recollection of death and impermanence.
The chiwa midakpa di gyule yakbo jike na teni tangbo chela jukbi gyu chigires tangbo niba di bardo chela kulbi ken chigires teni tama dame tokbi tok chigires dame tokba am tongni tokbi tok chigires.
And so in this way, then, the recollection of death and impermanence is in the beginning, at first. It is the cause for entering into the Buddha Dharma. In the middle, it is the motivation that pushes us on in our Dharma practice. And at the end, it is what will help us to realize selflessness or emptiness.
지와 미닥바디 양 쳐봐 다 쳐봐 약보지 차고 요나 쳐방원에 zet다지 차고 요나 세 디난기 자와 탐지 르 마통기 바도 진 쳐봐 약보지 치고 말했어 세 디기 나와 내가 가리 있는 돌라니 파 간소고래 르 마탕나 상로디 파르 마탕 바이나 니 쳐봐 약보지 차고 말했어.
So if one wishes to become a good Dharma practitioner, if one wishes to become a true Dharma practitioner, then actually, as long as we have not let go of the aims of this life, as long as we have not turned our minds away from the goals of this very life, as long as we are focused on the activities, the experiences, the appearances of this life, and have not forsaken those mentally, then we cannot become a genuine Dharma practitioner. We cannot become a good Dharma practitioner.
디 네마 좀 덤바 죽네세지도 좀 덤바세 미다바 곰댕이 좀 덤바세지도 좀 덤바 죽네세 네마 미다바 차다 곰댕이 좀 덤바세 콩라니 콩글로마 지기 야 슈인서라 녜다 나추 지기 요에서는 콩라 야 슈인서리 니 공기 최대 가르치기에서도 나다 꼬라랑 잠니 되기 위해서는 야 슈인서라 드니 니마지 좀 덤바기 마카 슈드스나 꼬르와 제디 약부레스 아 셈바 가부 중 약부레스로라 이내 대외경 최시 제나라브레 대외경 최시 지나서나 대래 양 심바 최시 지나라 콩라에 좀 덤바기 마스미다 당보디.
And so there's a story of a practitioner called Dromtonpa who was constantly cultivating the recollection of death and impermanence. He was always reflecting on death and impermanence. And one day a student came to him and told him, "Oh, I practice the Dharma." So Dromtonpa asked him, "Oh, what do you practice?" And the student responded, "I do kora, I do circumambulations." And so then later on, Dromtonpa tells that student, "Oh, doing kora, doing circumambulations is very good, but if you could practice Dharma, that would be even better."
Teni ko de loma di cancer da kana ko wa chinai chue mari dus. Da ko da di khan sung ge na kong da ya ngai thasam ji chi go sam ne da yang ko thasam ji pe cha lok pe cha ko wa chini de sare. Ini khan ji ge la do ni ma ji kong ge nga tring pe cha lok ge yes ko wa le ni de sha ye la do o de yang chana yak bo res thasam je de yang ka bo re yak bo res. And Devejan Chushi Jana Larry, Yanga Devejan Shambachu Jina Lavis, the drum number Masum was nibad.
And so then the student was kind of puzzled and was like, "What? So doing kora, doing circumambulations, that's not Dharma practice?" So then he thought, okay, probably I should study. I should engage in study and contemplation. So he started studying texts. And he studies, and then he goes back to the master. He goes back to Dromtonpa and tells him, "Oh, I am studying these texts." And Dromtonpa answers, "Oh, very good. Studying text is very good. But what if you actually practice some Dharma?"
Ini ta ko cancer ya di china tigmi khan sung na sare. Ta to samji oh ya ta de na ta komji gyab gosare ten komji gyab de rese. Then komji gyab ni de ne ngai kom gyab ni de yin sen ya shu sare drum dum bala. Yang kong da ran len gyab kom gyab na ka bo re ya bo res. Ina ya 대외장 취지 전화하세요. 양지 마송래세.
And so then again, the student was very confused and thought, okay, so not study and contemplation, then probably I should meditate, right? So he meditated and meditated. Then he goes back to Dromtonpa, the master, and says, oh, I've been meditating. And Dromtonpa answers exactly in the same way again. Oh, it's very good that you've been meditating, but what if you actually practice some Dharma?
Ini tako khanda komjamna digimindu tasamjina digimindu korwachina digimindu tako man tire ta chörang chena de khari chegore sine ya thidwa drum dembal tini ini drum dembagi ta chedil thongshos ta di chöres yagominde.
So the student is totally confused at this point. Like, what? So, okay, so circumambulation is not Dharma, study is not the Dharma, contemplation is not the Dharma, meditation is not the Dharma. Then what should I do? And he asks Dromtonpa, he asks him, well, what should I do if I want to actually practice the Dharma? And Dromtonpa answers, turn your mind away from this life. That is the Dharma.
Tadi Hindu ngarangsu tanda midakpadi gechimbo dushe thamji ginani chokdo gyurba yin se di gyumzin diri ta sedi lo matongna chuba yabuji chatuku mares.
And that is the reason why among all thoughts we can have, the recollection of impermanence and death is the most important. If you do not turn your mind away from this life, if you do not mentally let go of this life, then you cannot you cannot genuinely practice Dharma.
Da yang sedi lo tongsho sewa di yang da ji aba go mare, ama go mare, binja go mare, kangba go mare. Tini tende ta yongge yo mare ta aba ta lep chare, ama yo chare, kangba yang desa yo chare, lep chare dila. Ta denzo yuge yug segi yo mares. Le tong segi yo mares.
But then you may think, okay, but then, you know, letting go of this life or turning my mind away from this life, does that mean I need to forsake everything? Does that mean I need to give up on my father, my mother, my house, just abandon everything? That's not what this means. You already have a father, you already have a mother, you already have a house. The point is not abandoning these things. That's not what it means when we say, turn your mind away from this life.
Kangba yo gore 가르잖아 아주 대고라 강발라.
We need a house because we need a place to stay, right?
kasi apa mewa seshana teni ngaranzula chaminga idibasa gres.
And if we get rid of our father, then we'd be incurring one of the 5 deeds with immediate retribution.
Papa lo tongsu de zani di papa mewa se aba mewa se pinja mewa kamba mewa se segi yo mares.
So turning our minds away from this life does not mean getting rid of our father, our mother, our relatives, our house, and so on.
Se de lo tong serve gyumsen de kareresena shenja bong sereta shenba zimba de bongsho sereta papa ama pinja kangba denzola shenja bong segurida. So gyumsen de ngara sa goe gyumsen.
Turning our minds away from this life actually means relinquishing attachment, relinquishing our clinging, our attachment to our father, our mother, our relatives, our house, and so on. That is what it means to turn our minds away from this life.
Tiendo nema de rungji doala tanda kong chena ngaro dukba kunle ki rungji konse ko nangshi mari ko ta go mari se to chala chama nga go ge me ni go ge me sum go ge me se ne den ko taje ji ku ji ko ni dini thomla do de zaro 다 말라이 가양 고야 민두 니 캐나서 가리 고난 키쇼스 키스 인 라비에서라 코란 신샴지에서라 되니 미 총바 미지에서라 총라 되니 미디 장부지에서라 고 오야 캐나라 가리 고 메나 캐나게 센딩 알라 테쇼스 센 두로 술로거나 그 총바지 미장부되기
Tukula, yakpo
아니
koma
센티
santa.
두로 루모롱에 고에 미두스
Da di yakpo koma sankiran ki sumdi selpo ran chak mason. Da michi
Hola.
ki dupa kunle la kiran ki sen tigo.
디 두바군레 디 아가 기가서 계시에 왔나지 규반조 가야 고고 말에 대한 두바군레로 마샤와 지구래라 두바군레 중지도 적마야지 콩다 가야 고고 미도 잘라 가야 고고 미도 칸바 가야 고고 미도 라인서라
Nasa.
이거 독로지 부 컴더 도데 인서래 angala 가야 고에 미도 당알라 가야 고고 미도 람니고 도데서라 되니 총바 미지기 장부지기 오 치랑라 가양 고야 맨나 치랑기 두글로데 ngal 테쇼스
Nasa.
아니 ngal 롱몰롱에 양 고야 민두스가 두글로 정말 테샹나 테코 코로 롱롱에 데야 ngal 고야 민두스 나 브레스 디토 마레 ngazu 테스게 마레 신자 뽕스게 레스토디
Chik ha koma santa. Kong dupa kunle ki ngala long.
마레 ngal 가양 고야 민두스
Di ani tulo te songe.
마레 아니 미 톰라 미지기 미 장부지기
Ore.
코 두고군레 라데 치랑 가양 고야 맨나 치랑기 두글로데 ngal 테쇼스
Nasa.
아니 ngal 롱몰롱게 양 고야 민두스 라 미디 두고군레라
Nasa.
디토 라게요 마레 가서 단다 데라
Nasa. So there's a funny story about a famous sage called Drupa Kinle, who, in the manner that I was describing, decided that he didn't need anything, right? He didn't need a house, he didn't need any possessions. He just gave everything away and was walking in town in the marketplace saying, oh, you can take everything from me. I don't need anything. I'm giving everything away. I don't need anything. And so he's walking in the marketplace, and then there's this one vendor or shop owner who's probably like a smart guy, and goes up to Bakinla and says, "Oh, if you don't need anything, then give me your clothes." So this shop owner asks Drupa Kinle for his clothes, and Drupa Kinle answers, "Oh, but I also don't need any beggars. I also don't need anyone to ask me for things." So anyway, that's just a funny story, but the point is, it's not about giving things away. It's about letting go of our attachment. It's not about giving everything up. It's about giving up our attachment.
데니 세디 로통 로통세 되게 천시라고 지샤나 천시 지샤나 데디 마르바 로자바 디 코 가르 가르서는 공세 딜로 통요 마레스 가르서는 공라 게메 요레 공라 부고 요레 공라 균어 롱제 요레 공세 딜로 통요 마레 이나양 공 신자 봉데레스 셴바 짐바 지에요 마르덴졸라 천시 디더버 가랑조에나 직된 팔바 직된기 나올레 데나야 부고 아바 참만 고고레 잘라 고레 이나양 셴바 딜레 신자데 파봉무지나 디게레스 마르바 로자바 천시도 마르바 로자바레스
So the example that we can take for what it means to turn our minds away from this life is we can take as an example Marpa Lotsawa. Marpa had not relinquished everything in this life, right? Marpa was married, he had children, he had a farm, and so on. So he hadn't given everything up, but he had given up all attachment to these things. He had completely given up attachment and clinging. And so that should be our role model. That should be our kind of example of what it means to turn your mind away from this life. So in this way, then Marpa Lotsawa is an example of what it means to turn your mind away from this life.
Tene di indu ta chö ma do ngaranzol phengi yo mare chö tui dak boji yak boji chigo wala tene midak ba di mena tene chö ba yak bo tui dak boji chagi yo mares chiwa midak ba di matem ba ina.
So apart from Dharma, there is nothing that will truly benefit us. And in order to practice the Dharma genuinely, correctly, we cannot do so without recollecting death and impermanence.
Tene chiwa temba digi gombi penyu kasi chiwa yakboji temba ina di gombi gi ta di teni di gomba ina tene digi penyu nisum jidus.
And there are a few benefits then that I would like to share that come from cultivating the recollection or meditating on the recollection of death and impermanence.
다 된치베 페인스 페인 당부 된다 빼 침보 말아서 최지 제나야래 아니 퇴삼 지나래 곰바 지나 퇴바 삼바 곰바 가래 지나야 되게 된다 된 침보 지 된매바 마임바 된리지 종그레스 당보 페인.
So the first benefit is that everything will be everything we do will be very meaningful. Whatever we are engaging in terms of Dharma practice, whether study, contemplation, or meditation, it will be very beneficial, very meaningful if we do so with the recollection of death and impermanence.
니 니바디 톱 침보 톱 치비 페인스 톱 침보 다 가리 내가 지나야 딜라 누바 침보 톱 침보다 되니 디최 터바 지나야 되니 톱 침보 누바 침보 삼바 지나야 톱 침보 누바 침보 곰바지 지나야 되니 저기 잠도 심지에 가리 지나야래 단지 내가 직된바지 이나야 저기 취미쟁이 지나래 제와 지나래 레가 지나래 다 된저기 페인디 톱 침보 중구레스.
And the second benefit is that everything we do will be very powerful. It will, our actions will have great strength, great power. So again, whether it's study, contemplation, or meditation, our study will be will have great strength, great. Yes, it will be very powerful. Same thing with practicing going for refuge, giving rise to bodhicitta, actually both in terms of Dharma practice and in terms of worldly activities, everything we do will carry great strength and power. So that's the second benefit of recollecting death and impermanence.
니 수바디 치위 값어야 되니 로 대위 나는 치와 가지 시위 값어야 되니 로 대위 나는 되니 치야된데 대디 값이 줘봐 가야 매봐 되니 로 대위 나는 치와 레슨나 장난 매봐 되니 차바츠베 가야 맞춰봐 되니 치마라이 줘야라이 거 장난 가야 매 ngazu che de chi bu ge le ga sha ta chi che jima de ta le beng to chiwa le ngo ta jima khawa do ma to ten ten me on ten ta ngu ra.
And the third benefit is that at the time of death we'll die in peace, we'll die in a happy mindset without regret, without any fear of what comes next, with no reason to be terrified at what's awaiting us in the next life. If, on the other hand, we're just always focusing on this life, just thinking of this life, this life, this life, then of course, when the time of death comes and the time to pass on into the next life comes, then not knowing what awaits us, we will be terrified.
Nilo deving chiwa se dila tanji ngai sum shuban choba rab dang ding dang tama yuwa choba rab ina gashin proshin ngado teni chiwa dang teni ding ina teni chiwa la miserwa teni tama ina gyoba meba chi teni chi chagires midakba de abuji komba ina.
And so, like I said earlier, if one cultivates the recollection of impermanence and death, then as a practitioner, at best one will die in a happy, joyful mindset. Next best, one will be indifferent or fearless in the face of death. And at the very least, one will not have any regrets.
인도자니 다 치마기 삼로야고 지땅니 가랑조 드니 가르스나 상다 직니 치마니 응원도 가야 응원 강 용와 가서 상다 직니 치마 응원도 가야 때메디 상기 첼라 마베바 치미들라 베바 릭세지 도아식 상다 직니 상다 직니 치마니 스타가지 태강 슈샤게 상산인당 직니 치마니디 Mwendo kari yung ma yung ngazul tende yung ma res. Tering nya de sanyi langaya mewa si jikden chima cha sigi res. Di indu zani sanyi ki tanda la jiga ma beba chi lega kari ina ya. Chimi ki ngadu tse di de pe tungtung jirida. Lo jaju gubju tse ringu re tengi yore ma to. Jikden chima ni chima si to ba chang meba yore pa drogora. Ngadu tse chima samlo yu rungbu samlo ma tangwa chi tanda yu tungtung jigla pe chak ni de shana. 세치마 링부라다 디 단다 고갑 친구들 알아서 베제 아버지 마당소나 세치마 원내 장내 디 더버지기 미세 내 말레 텐데 요 말에 디 도자니 가도 옛날에 세 드링다 산이 그 삼로 마당 와신 세치마 그 삼로 땅에 원에 드니 삼 최지 지나 최 아버지 차그레스
아니 직체디 그냥 양결성 전화. And so there's a saying that goes between tomorrow and the afterlife, we don't know what will come next. We don't know whether as we go to bed tonight, we don't know whether we will wake up tomorrow or whether we will wake up in the afterlife. Therefore, then give up on the activities, give up on your preparations for tomorrow, and instead focus on preparing for the afterlife. Because really, we think that these lives of ours are very long. We think maybe we'll live for 90 years and that's very long, but that's nothing compared to the infinity of future lives that we have before us. So we should stop thinking only of this day and the next day, and instead focus on what comes next, focus on the next life. And only by doing so then can we become good, genuine Dharma practitioners.
Ni tadi zodi ngaranzo tingsan chetar tang cheba me wang shu cheba me drup me sa kala sa mangboji chigido tadi ngone che maseba chiwa ina ta che maseni tani chi ngaranzo che pele tani jo ba cheba me drup inare chetar tang na pengire che se chana sunam 세잖아 되니 고 가제 체가땅 나땅 세바메 가제 룸나 룸메 가제 사나사 고르모 가제 유연을 유 데코 세잖아 찾아를 소남세 겁니다. 원래 자두고 가르치나 핑구 말했어. 마스터이나 핑계를 게임기더니 처방주나 세사바이나 세사바이나 다 가서 지나지 핑 말했어.
So basically, the point is, whatever we do to prolong life, right? Whatever we do in order to prolong this life, whether it's life release, Amitayu's practice, taking medicine, all the various deeds we do in the hopes of prolonging this life, none of those will be of any help once our lifespan has come to exhaustion. Once we arrive at the end of our lives, once our lifespan reaches its end, once our merit has come to exhaustion, then there's nothing that can be done to prolong our lives. You can release as many lives as you want. You can practice Amitayus as much as you want. You can take as much medicine as you want. If your merit has run out, if your lifespan has reached its end, there's nothing that can be done to prolong it. If that's not the case, of course, if your lifespan has not reached its end, then these practices can help. But once you've reached the end of your merit and your lifespan, then there's nothing you can do to change that. So this being the case, whether this life or the next, the only thing that is truly beneficial is the Dharma. And among all possible Dharma practices, much more important than doing circumambulations, much more important than study, contemplation, and meditation, the actual key point of Dharma practice is to turn our minds away from this life, to give up our attachment and clinging. That is the most important. Otherwise, we can give up everything. We can go to be hermits in the mountainside. But if we haven't given up our attachment, then that will be of no help. Like in the kind of joke about Drupa Kunle that I told before.
Learning to live say the dirita, Shinja point the Takinamba Yaboji Tedire, Chimagri Shinja point the learning Senada. Learning to live in that dig on learning chidena, we say live life, Karijina Yabuchagres, Train a Yabuchagre, Chimaging and I Yabuchagres.
So when we say learning how to live, right, learning how to live a good life, if you give up attachment both to this life and the next, then that is really the way to live a good life. If you give up attachment, all your attachment to this life and the next life, then both in terms of Dharma and non-Dharma, you will live a good life. So that's what I had to say today. La sutukula ani kongsu nama tiwa kashe kandi kashe tansong internet la da chir 건축 간지 담만포 요래 가르치고래.
가시지 로알 제기 송잖아. 되니 셴바든조 제마 마음바 칼레.
다 지르장 건축의 시외 kap수 가르치고래 세나 남식 시두 잠인자 요래라. 다 지와 나가 니요래. 직디 소소 치와라 가르치고래. 그러나 냠는 가르치고래 시주로와 아니 샴파디 미션 시tu nanso ropa kandes chetukires diang that tiwa nakani jinda yure perna ni mangpo
다디 조디 다 랑치웨 값수 정보 쉬나 다 팬디 최마도 요말 단지 내 쉬바나 신레 최디 부닥보 약보지치 되니 최디 다 랑주단 진 랑주단 마제나 되니 최바 약보 차고 말 랑주단 제버 제발라 되 미다바리 약보 곰바이나 랑주단 제나 된 치위 값수 줘바 메와 차거리 치위 강도 되니 가서 로 대위 강도 치세지도 아니 대리지 치용도 되니 가지고에 메리 그 지고에서 민도 콜로 대위 강도 신나데 가지고에 가야 고랑
ni perma nanso shi mashi pengen la jampa mepa gyurne gyalne 가르치고레스 티도
어다 템바 메와 자고 말다 템바 메위 몰라 템바 마자 몰라 치마타 거때 말아도 니마타 봐 다다네 송데 고쪽네 되니 냠len 지에 되게 좀 뭐라 박자 상보직 되니 가서 거래 델와 약보지 수행하나 때 템바 톰나 있고 가요 말이고 박자 약보도 요용도 디 균장샤도 디고 바르도 이나레 치가의 그 값수 이나레 셈바디고 베 가서 거래 템바든 신신의 바이오던 템바지 요용도 디고 가요 말에서 콜라 칼레 제자고 용 말
So we received quite a few questions, and I'm just trying to kind of summarize them all for Tukula. And basically, there's mostly two types of questions. One, what to do at the time of our own death, and the other, what to do to help others at the time of their death. And so in terms of our own death, Tukula replied, it's like I said earlier, right? The point is, there's nothing really that can help except for the Dharma. So if you truly apply the Dharma, if you truly mingle your mind with the Dharma, if you give rise to a deep connection with the Dharma in your mind stream by recollecting death and impermanence, then at the time of death, you will have no regret. You will be able to die happily and joyfully. So there won't be anything special for you to do, right? There's nothing else for you to do than die in a happy state without any regret. There'll be no fear, no reason to have any fear, and so no need to do anything at that point. And there were a few questions as to what to do if if we're unconscious at the time of death and the like. But before you lose consciousness, that's the point. Before you lose consciousness, even if you die in an unconscious state, but what matters is what you've done before. So the fact that you've practiced the Dharma before during your lifetime, that you've created those good habits, and having created those good habits, having created those connections with the Dharma, it doesn't really matter in what circumstances you die, whether at the time of death or during the bardo, and so on. If you have during your lifetime cultivated mindfulness, carefulness, vigilance, and so on, then you'll be able, you will die peacefully, right? And that's really what matters. So it's all about having created the right habit beforehand. Also, any mission shidu.
어디래?
Rapa kandachi.
오다 다 조디 미신 시도다 신바양 다가랑 조다 신바 문에 최지겐지 있나 다 딜라 나라조기 겐기 최양 신바 최지겐지기 양콜라 톡 펜도 그래 베나 신바디기 남시 잘송바 있나 코 최도시 코랑바 사펜다고 지오바 있나 드니 라마 냠리 유겐 똑바 유겐레 된조게 되니 포와 잡아당 되니 된조게 창조 제바당 몰람 제바 된조라 족독 조스 팽기레 망부 팽기 말에 장부시나 디 코랑게 생고마 다 세딜라 디 지게 초사 마살라 지게 라리그레마도 산지게 양송여라 지게 심제 라라수수게 레사교레 라라수수게 레디 지나마도 산지게 파 주에다 산지게 파야 야 대화진도야 다방방 방에도 이거 말을 숨으라 인도산이 또 빙그레 최세디 추기 가수를 덴바다 아니 레짐들로안데 발테니 또 팽그레스 남바산지 단다 Mahayana Hindu ini simje tham gechumbindo ngazumutni cheandege indozane ini simje thamjigi cheduni ngaranzoda mi taji shemba bijila ngaranzo pen toegi legaji da midila kaji ngaranzo nipa menai teni ji kulong sambo ge ton chanju simji tsine korange chedo teni bo she da ngomalam ji chitubeji na dechi di menan de 장벌 당 포화 잡투게나 장벌 당 포화치 디메나 영화도 몰라면 고 제심 인공 루비팅 미치나 콜레지아지 니슈 숨지지 팽그레스 족지 그레스
And so then so the other question then was, so how do we help others at the time of death, right? Well, we can do a little to help others who are dying or have died, especially if they were Dharma practitioners. Then, you know, we can have a guru perform poa or a kind of purifying name burning ceremony, and so on. So there are things that can help a little bit for those who have passed away. But to be honest, the help that we can give to people who die or have died is limited because it mostly all depends on their own accumulations of merit and wisdom during their lifetime. So it's like the Buddha said, sentient beings accumulate their own karma and have to work through their own karma. They have to purify their own karma. I cannot wash their defilements or misdeeds away with my hands. I cannot take them and bring them to a pure land. The Buddha cannot do that for us. So that being the case, there's only so much we can do to help others, but we can do a little bit based on the truth of the Dharma and based on the truth of undeceiving karmic cause and effect. There are some actions we can take in order to benefit others at the time of death. But keep in mind that all of us as Buddhists, and in particular Mahayana practitioners, whatever practice we do, we already are doing for the benefit of all sentient beings, right? And that really is the most important, to remember that all our actions, all the Dharma that we engage in is in fact for the benefit of all sentient beings. So we are already acting to help all others. Now, so that being the case, then, perhaps we ourselves do not have the kind of the power to do to have so much of an effect, to do so much to help someone who is dying. But if we act on their behalf, if we do prayers, if we have poa made done for them, or name burning ritual done for them, or just recite, if that's not possible, just to recite some prayers and aspirations for the dying. If we do so with the genuine motivation of bodhicitta, then that will have some effect. That can help maybe like 20 or 30%. Mainly, really what we can do for anyone who is dying, whether they're Buddhists or not, therefore, is to say prayers and make aspirations with the genuine motivation of bodhicitta. Tulku can. Oh, okay. Lasso, 아니 난소 다 별나 난소 녀와 그냥 식 시네 난소 다tung 진파요나 다tung 셴파요나 저 두냐 요래 디키 년부 가르래 디가 간을 치고래
다디 망보여 등상 다디 망치와디 다 셴바 단지 가서 라와데 체디당 체딜레 셴바 슈충보 차소나 드니 카시 파말라 차 카시 균노 롱졸라 차 카시 사자라 차 카시 다 가와가사 차 가로라 차다 다미레 차데도 코디 짐바데 슈충보 차 용도 데코 체딜라파 로당 마퉁에 데니 박차 침보지 샤네 데겐데 요레 다 딜라 장보시나야 님보 때라다 님보 대양 드니 이 코랑게다 디 데부레 규차네 규디기 데부디 랩차도 도스 갖고요레 람사 메바스 투베티 다지 모네 코랑게 뉴바 첨부 유연나마도 뉴바 첨부 유연나야 가라 남바 산지 루라 산지 좀네디 람산데 투에 다니가 슈바나신 메바스 저기 두고 말해서 다 코랑 규가레체와디 데부디 민차도 다 데부 랩차도 제스 메리 믹세 다 디나야 베드 코라 메르베스나야 디마레 딘 다니가 슈바나신 쳬라야 뉴바요레 뉴레라 뉴바레 잠닝제 장주기 셈들라 뉴바요레 뉴바요 탁조레 뉴바요도 디 뉴바요게 다디게 냠다 쉐디기 뉴바 냠당 냠 쉐딜라 냠레 요겐직당 똑바 요겐직 임바이나 디기 드니 지금 몰람 잠나레 마르메레 드니양 ngajo jinsek gaya dawodan sur tangaya dawodan dendre chibaina khodi zimbale 똑시 파 조진의 람 야 람가 지게 고양보 람 세프티 journey 대지라 수시야 pen 람가 세프티 메사니 수시 세프티 여사지라 pen 호라다 지 람야보지라 드레지 스웨트베기 누바지 용그레스 lamga yakol ni yang koran lam nor sona di yang ngaju ta are khang ro jo re tini che yo marte le se di le jin lu wa me ro ta ya
Yes. And so then there was a question about what to do if we are still attached, what to do when we are grieving someone who has passed away, and how to deal with the attachment to someone who has passed away. And this will, this is really what I was talking about earlier in terms of attachment to this life, right? Attachment to this life can take many forms. It can mean attachment to one's parents, attachment to one's wealth, to one's home, to certain places, to one's boyfriend or girlfriend. And if we have such types of strong attachments, then that's a habit that we've created, right? That's if we cultivate such attachment throughout our lives, then we have this strong habit of being attached to people and things in our lives. And so the remedy for this, it's a little bit difficult because it's the result of a cause, right? So missing someone who has passed away is the result of our attachment for that person. And like I said before, when I quoted the Buddha who said, I cannot wash away your misdeeds. You sentient beings have to do that for themselves. There's only so much we can do in terms of the results of karmic causes, right? We have to go through the effects of karmic causes. But that doesn't mean that there's nothing we can do, right? Because again, like I said before, the Dharma has power, right? Karmic cause and effect have power. Loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta have power. And so if one is a practitioner who has some measure of experience and realization of the Dharma, then, for example, one can make aspiration prayers, light candles, do jinsek, burning fire offerings, and sur, so other types of burnt offerings for the dead, and that will help us let go a little bit of our attachment as we kind of aim to guide those who have passed away onto the right path so that they may have a safe journey into the next life. So we can do these practices with the motivation to guide them safely along the way. If we have a little bit of if our practice carries some power, then we can do so. But then at the same time, if the deceased have already engaged on the wrong path as they move away from this life, then there's really nothing we can do because that's the result of their own karma, right? And our ability to influence that is very limited. Nasıl dene karman ngaduk da kiran
ola
kande
kama chik
dongiela.
ngadi chige na kona ba gi di phagwa dishi chukchik bi do di dero chi sunguda
Olas.
ngadi
And
den
so
shagin shirochi ten juk du shagin
Lasso. So now, since we have just 5 minutes left, I believe, then Tulku will give us the transmission or recite the Noble Sutra on teaching the 11 perceptions. Lasso.
jagar gitu arya tanja praja Arya Tanjana Ekadasha Shri Sutta Pyokido Papa Dushi Chukchik Bido Kunjo Sumla Chazalo Degeda Gitoba Duchina Chumnende Kushi Dongjirna Geki Nyekur Sing Sala Sungji Chalna Shukde Yonsu Nyangen de Davids Gelong Namla Kazalwa Gelong Da Namchi Viduki Tse Gelong Dushi Chukje Mondo Jao Chukje Gangi Shenas Tse de la Machak Bidushi Simjen Tamje la Jambi Dushi Kondu Zimbat Tamji Yonsu Dorbi Dushi Dang Chalbi Surim Tamji Shak Bidushi Da Surim Tamji Yang Da Bralang Bidushi Da Nyeba Chimba Jeba Dagla Yang Dagla Yang Bidushi Da Gewe Zawa Chungo Dagla Yang Chevi Dusheda, Jigden Paro Dala, Jigba maybe Dusheda, Duje Tamjela, Midak be Dusheda, Chue Tamjela, Dam maybe Dusheda, Nyangenle Daba, Nyangenle Debani, Shivi Yambi Dushe, Mundu Javos, Jumden de Dege Jekats and Gelong the Dak, Yirang de Jumden de Sumala Mumbarduto, Dushi Chukjik Tumba, Jumden de Shalchem Zosos, Lasso,
The Noble Sutra on Teaching the 11 Perceptions. Homage to the 3 jewels. Thus did I hear at one time. The Blessed One was dwelling in the grove of twin sal trees in the vicinity of the Mala town of Kushinagara. As the time came for his Mahaparinirvana, he addressed the monks. O monks, at the time of death, a monk should engender the 11 perceptions. What are the 11? They are the perception of non-attachment to this life, the perception of love for all beings, the perception of relinquishing all grudges, the perception of confessing all debauched discipline, the perception of embodying all discipline, the perception of spaciousness towards even major wrongdoing, the perception of greatness towards even minor roots of virtue, the perception of fearlessness towards the next world, the perception of impermanence towards all conditioned things, the perception of selflessness toward all phenomena, the perception of understanding nirvana to be peace. As soon as the Blessed One has said this, all the monks rejoice and praise the words of the Blessed One. This completes teaching the 11 perceptions, the final testament of the Blessed One.
Hola, so that ring the Gazami, the Nishimba, Tiwa Dinzo, Mahombala, and the Ni Narazo Lama, and the senior Lama get teaching Nangla, then Tiwa Tain, and Chilenjay,
Yes, Hona. So this concludes our teachings for today, and whatever questions have not been answered today, maybe they can be asked again and answered in future Senior Lama teaching sessions.
So, need to check your number, Chama, that ring Kazi, can number la Kansa with Zangma, Takpo, today, Chige, Jeja, Korankari imba. Darang la Japtu Matunge Hagumasons, Kari, Notu, the Yoba and a Konda Shugi, Shapa Chigis, Inke number Mahombola Yaya Jagitini, Kansagore, Molam Dan, ni Jachobi, ni Jacho Batamare, Jag Molam US.
So thank you to all of you, and I don't know if everything I said was clear, whether I covered the topic in a clear and sound way, and whether you got everything. So I'm sorry for any mistake that I may have made. I confess any error that I may have made during this teaching, and I aspire and wish to meet you all soon again.
Chuzni Gringla, Karanzo Nyembadang, Rangi Sheba, Dini to Domji, Tini, Simjatam, Chigitando, Tini, Moaj Chigis.
And whatever merit we have communally accrued, you by listening to and me by discussing the Dharma, all of this put together, I dedicate to the benefit of all beings.
So Namde, Tamjizik Bani, Tomnani Berana, Ekana Jimala, Tubai, Sibit, Solenroa, Rolwara show, Changju, Simju Rimboji, Maji Banam, Jiji, Kebanyamba, Mebaya, Gone, Kondo, Pelwara show, Dambaji, comes to Jumba. Temba New Vision knows all that, then settle of Darshin Jebai, Temba, Urine, Petrashi. So, Oriental Tujiche, and it's Hamala Tujiche, Shugi, Goti Tangenda, Gejur Amala.
So thank you all. I'd like to thank all the organizers and the translators. Thank you all for this.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Tukla and Orion, for that wonderful teaching and translation. Tukla, I'm sure that I'm not alone in finding this a very clear teaching and very, very powerful. May we all take your precious teachings to heart, constantly recollecting death and impermanence so that we can practice Dharma authentically, break all our attachments to this life, live a meaningful life, and die joyfully. Thank you so much. And Tukla, please be in good health, live long, and return often to teach us. And may we speak soon in person.
Yes.
I wish I could see you now virtually, but it's good to hear your voice. We also want to thank all of you who participated today, and for those of you who submitted the questions for Tukla to answer. And we want to thank, in addition to Orion's wonderful English translation, all of the translators on the other channels, who include Kathy in Chinese, Victor in Portuguese, Marcella in Spanish, Nata in Russian, Sukanya, Thai, Abraham, Vietnamese, and Tom in Japanese. We also want to remind you that we have more video teachings and interviews with Tukla on the same topic that was covered today on the Noble Living, Noble Caring, Noble Dying Resource Center on the Samye website. So this concludes our 5th installment of the Senior Lama teaching series. We're still finalizing details for the next one, which will be held in May. So please stay tuned. We will notify you as soon as we know. So everyone, please stay safe and well. Chat is now available, and you can unmute yourselves to thank Tukla and Orion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you
very much.
So beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lama.
Thank you.
เชื่อแล้วมาลา
Much Tukla.
คุณแม่ขอบคุณค่ะ
Thank you, Tukla. Thank you.
Thank you 谢谢刘老师
Thank you.
Gracias. Gracias.
Gracias.
Tulku.
Gracias.